Hello everyone. Welcome back and thanks for joining us today. We have a brand new story to share with you, so let's get started. My name is Olivia, and at 53, I had settled into the comfort and predictability of a life well lived. Or so I believed. Married to Jacob for nearly 3 decades. Our relationship had evolved into a calm rhythm of mutual understanding, quiet evenings, and the unspoken assurance that each day would mirror the last. Jacob was a man of stability and integrity, working as a senior executive at a prominent financial firm. Our lives, anchored in quiet suburban comfort, rarely strayed from routine, and though this consistency was reassuring, it also carried an undercurrent of quiet restlessness, an unspoken question of whether life still held any surprises for us. It was during an ordinary Wednesday dinner when Jacob mentioned, somewhat casually yet with a curious hesitation, that his boss, Nathan, had invited us to his home for dinner the following weekend. Nathan Hawthorne was a charismatic figure in his early 50s, a man whose polished confidence and commanding presence often drew admiration, and perhaps envy, from those around him. I'd met Nathan briefly at corporate functions, always noticing his carefully constructed charm and that elusive sense of power he wore effortlessly. Yet something about the idea of dining privately with him felt subtly unsettling. A vague apprehension whispering beneath my consciousness. On Saturday evening, as I slipped into a deep burgundy dress chosen more for Jacob's pride than my own comfort, a strange unease stirred within me. Why had Nathan insisted on including me in this invitation, specifically asking Jacob to bring his wife along? It seemed an unusual request, setting the stage for an evening that already felt laden with expectation. As we drove through quiet, tree-lined streets toward Nathan's impressive home, Jacob was unusually quiet, his hands gripping the steering wheel a bit tighter than normal. Glancing at him, I wondered if he, too, sensed something off, some subtle tension in the invitation that neither of us could yet identify. When we arrived, Nathan greeted us warmly at the door, his voice smooth, his handshake lingering just a fraction longer than comfortable as he took my hand. His eyes, dark and penetrating, held mine for a moment, stirring a faint unease in my chest. "Olivia," he said, his tone rich with something ambiguous, a gentle smile on his lips. "I'm delighted you could join us. Your presence makes the evening all the more special." His words, though polite, carried an unsettling weight, hinting at an intention I couldn't yet decipher. Inside the softly lit dining room, the table was meticulously set for 3, the absence of Nathan's wife conspicuously apparent. When I asked politely after her, Nathan's eyes darkened momentarily before his polished smile returned. "She's away, visiting family," he said smoothly, but the slight hesitation in his voice piqued my curiosity. As dinner began, the conversation drifted predictably around business, the firm, and polite pleasantries, yet beneath Nathan's composed exterior, I sensed he was carefully steering us towards something more personal, something carefully hidden beneath the surface of his charm. As Nathan leaned forward, swirling his glass of red wine thoughtfully, he looked at Jacob, then fixed his gaze intently on me. "Olivia," he began softly, his voice dropping lower, taking on a quiet intensity that quickened my heartbeat. "Have you ever wondered if there's more to life than comfort? If perhaps stepping beyond our usual boundaries could offer a new kind of excitement?" The silence that followed his words stretched tautly, pregnant with meaning, his eyes challenging me gently yet unmistakably. My heart pounded painfully in my chest as I glanced helplessly at Jacob. Seeing confusion reflected back at me, something had undeniably shifted. This ordinary evening had suddenly become dangerously uncertain, leaving me wondering just how far Nathan intended to take us. My pulse quickened as Nathan's words settled into the quiet room, thickening the air until it felt almost unbreathable. I glanced instinctively at Jacob, searching his face for reassurance, for a flicker of understanding, but instead saw a shadow of confusion and something else, curiosity. Perhaps that sent a chill down my spine. Nathan leaned back comfortably in his chair, observing us with a faint, enigmatic smile, clearly waiting for his suggestion to sink in. Jacob shifted slightly, breaking the silence with an awkward laugh. "Nathan, you're always one for provocative ideas, but this seems unusual. What exactly are you suggesting?" Nathan regarded Jacob calmly, his gaze unwavering. Life grows predictable over time. Jacob, I've always believed that certain experiences, even those unconventional or uncomfortable, can bring clarity, perhaps even revive things we didn't realize were fading. His eyes flickered momentarily to me, piercing yet strangely gentle, as though he saw something deep within me that even I hadn't yet acknowledged. Feeling suddenly vulnerable, I struggled to maintain composure, my voice unsteady as I spoke. I'm not sure what you're implying, Nathan, but our life together has never required that kind of experience. My attempt at firmness was undermined by the slight tremble in my voice, betraying the emotions Nathan had unexpectedly stirred. He nodded slowly, thoughtfully, his eyes compassionate yet deeply intense. Never leaving mine. Perhaps it hasn't, he conceded softly. But Olivia, haven't you ever felt a quiet longing? A whisper inside that there might be something more? Something you've kept buried because it feels safer? His words struck a nerve, unearthing a truth I had never dared explore, not even privately. I looked to Jacob again, hoping he might speak, defend me, shield me from this unsettling confrontation. But Jacob remained silent, his gaze fixed uncertainly on Nathan, clearly intrigued yet uncomfortable. The realization that Jacob might be genuinely considering Nathan's suggestion shook me to my core. A wave of anxiety surged through me, a sudden fear that perhaps I didn't know my husband as well as I thought. I think we've misunderstood each other, Jacob finally said, his voice calm but guarded. Olivia and I have built our lives around trust, respect, and routine? Nathan interrupted softly, his voice barely above a whisper, yet commanding all the same. Jacob, there's a difference between stability and stagnation. Sometimes we mistake familiarity for happiness. I'm simply suggesting an opportunity to discover something more authentic, something hidden beneath all that routine. I felt my chest tighten painfully, my mind racing. Why had Nathan chosen us? Chosen me, to unravel in this way? His careful, calculated words seemed designed to shake the very foundation of our marriage. Yet, deep within, beneath my anxiety and outrage, I felt a troubling flicker of curiosity, a dark and shameful whisper that wondered if Nathan could be right. Jacob exhaled heavily, clearly torn between loyalty and intrigue. This isn't a decision we could ever take lightly. Nathan, he said cautiously, glancing at me with an expression of hesitant apology. I think Olivia and I need time to discuss this privately. Nathan inclined his head graciously, the intensity of his gaze softening slightly, though never entirely losing its edge. Of course, no pressure, but consider it carefully, he said, his voice resonating with a quiet urgency. These moments, these crossroads, they rarely come twice. The rest of the evening passed in subdued conversation, a fragile facade of normalcy barely masking the storm brewing within me. As we finally stepped into the cool night air, leaving Nathan's home behind us, Jacob reached out, gently touching my shoulder, but the gesture brought little comfort. A wedge had already formed, a silent barrier built by words we had never imagined speaking. And as we drove home, wrapped in uneasy silence, I couldn't help but wonder if our lives would ever truly be the same again. The days that followed were consumed by an unrelenting tension, a cloud of unspoken words hanging heavily between Jacob and me. Every mundane activity, breakfast at our quiet kitchen table, evening walks in our neighborhood, even our nightly routine of brushing teeth side by side, seemed altered by Nathan's unsettling proposition. I watched Jacob closely, searching for reassurance, but his silence felt louder than any words could have been. It was as if a seed of doubt had been planted deep within him, and I couldn't help but fear it was beginning to grow. One evening, as rain softly tapped against our windows, Jacob finally broke the fragile silence we'd so carefully maintained. We sat across from each other, mugs of untouched tea growing cold between us, the room dimly lit by a solitary lamp. His voice was low, hesitant, as though he had rehearsed his words 1,000 times but still wasn't sure how to begin. Olivia, I haven't been able to stop thinking about what Nathan said. My heart clenched tightly in my chest, though I'd anticipated this conversation. Hearing Jacob admit it aloud felt like a betrayal. Why, Jacob? Why would you even entertain something like that? My voice quivered with emotion, revealing my hurt, My fear of the fragile foundation our marriage had become overnight. Jacob exhaled slowly, running his hand nervously through his hair, a gesture he'd always done when struggling to articulate difficult feelings. Because Nathan might be right. Olivia, maybe we have become too comfortable. Too predictable. Maybe there's something important we're missing. Something deeper we haven't explored. Anger and sadness surged simultaneously, tearing at my composure. So, you're willing to risk our entire marriage, everything we've built, just to satisfy some curiosity? My voice rose sharply, pain clear in each word. He met my gaze, eyes filled with a mixture of remorse and genuine vulnerability. It's not about risking us, Olivia. It's about facing whatever this thing is that's been hanging unspoken between us for years. Nathan forced me to confront something I've long felt but ignored, something that terrifies me to admit even now. The raw honesty in Jacob's voice drained the anger from me, replaced instead by a wave of deep empathy and heartbreaking clarity. He was just as confused, just as shaken as I was. And in that moment, I realized the true gravity of Nathan's proposal. It wasn't just an indecent suggestion, it was a painful illumination of our hidden uncertainties. Fears we had buried beneath years of comfortable silence. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and reached across the table to touch Jacob's hand softly. Then talk to me. Jacob, tell me what you've been feeling. Let's face this together, without Nathan or anyone else. His fingers tightened around mine, trembling slightly. I've been feeling lost. Olivia, I love you more than anything. But lately, I've felt invisible. Sometimes I wonder if we're together out of habit rather than passion or true connection. His voice cracked slightly, revealing a vulnerability I'd never seen so openly displayed before. The depth of his confession shook me profoundly. Tears blurred my vision as I struggled to find the right words. You're not alone in this feeling, Jacob. Maybe we both became so used to being fine that we forgot what it means to truly see each other. He nodded slowly, relief and sadness mingling in his eyes. The truth we'd finally spoken created both healing and fresh wounds simultaneously, leaving us at the precipice of change. We now faced a crucial crossroads. Would we rebuild the connection we had once so easily shared? Or let this newfound truth push us even further apart? As we sat together in that dimly lit kitchen, the rain now a steady, comforting backdrop to our conversation, I realized our marriage had never been as fragile nor as precious as it was at that exact moment. The question now was whether our honesty would lead to renewal or to irreparable fracture. Only time, and the courage to keep confronting these painful truths, would reveal the answer. The days following our candid conversation became an emotional blur, filled with cautious interactions and quiet introspection. Though Jacob and I had managed to open up about our fears and uncertainties, a shadow lingered in our home, a subtle tension neither of us knew how to navigate. Every word we exchanged was careful, as if we feared a single misstep could shatter the fragile peace we'd just begun to rebuild. At times, I caught Jacob lost in thought, staring blankly into the distance. I desperately wanted to reach him, to reassure him, and myself, that we would find our way back. Yet each time I tried, uncertainty stopped me cold. One afternoon, while Jacob was at work, I received an unexpected message from Nathan, his name glaring back at me from the screen like an accusation. My heart raced as my fingers trembled slightly over the screen. Olivia, the message read, concise yet deliberately provocative. I'd like to speak with you privately. Please consider it. It might clarify some things for both of us. My breath caught sharply. Anger flared first, quickly followed by curiosity and dread. What could Nathan possibly want to discuss that hadn't already unsettled our lives? More importantly, why was a part of me tempted to hear him out? I knew the smart choice was to ignore the message, to block Nathan and move forward, protecting my marriage at all costs. But a stubborn voice inside urged me otherwise, whispering that understanding Nathan's intentions might somehow help me grasp the truths Jacob and I had only begun to face. Driven by this uncertainty, I reluctantly agreed to meet him later that evening at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. As the hours crawled by, anxiety gnawed at my resolve. When I arrived at the cafe, the cozy atmosphere, usually comforting, felt suffocating. Nathan sat near the back, calmly sipping his coffee, exuding an unsettling sense of control. As our eyes met, he offered a gentle, knowing smile, one that sent shivers down my spine. "I appreciate you meeting me," Nathan began smoothly, his voice calm and reassuring. "I understand this is difficult, but I truly think we need this conversation." "Why, Nathan?" My voice shook despite my best effort to remain composed. "What could you possibly have to say that would justify all of this?" He leaned forward slightly, hands clasped, his expression unexpectedly earnest. "Because, Olivia, this was never about disrupting your marriage. It was about forcing you, and Jacob, to see something you've both avoided for far too long." "And what is that?" My throat tightened, anger and desperation blending in my voice. "That your marriage, like many others, has become comfortable but hollow. You've forgotten what passion and genuine connection feel like," he said, his gaze intense yet oddly gentle. "My intention wasn't cruelty, but to remind you that you both deserve more than mere complacency." I felt my anger waver, replaced by confusion and a painful recognition. Nathan had touched upon a raw, uncomfortable truth we had been dancing around, afraid to face head-on. My vision blurred slightly as tears threatened, and I clenched my fists to steady myself. Even if that were true, "Nathan, what gives you the right to intrude into our lives like this?" "Nothing," he admitted softly, "but I know firsthand how easily people lose each other when they're afraid to confront difficult truths. Jacob deserves honesty, and so do you." I took a shaky breath, the weight of his words pressing painfully against my chest. Nathan had crossed a line. But perhaps he was right, maybe he had forced us to confront something essential. Something we might have ignored until it was too late. As I stood to leave, my thoughts swirling chaotically, Nathan reached out gently, briefly touching my hand. "Whatever you decide, Olivia, choose it consciously. Your happiness and Jacob's depend on it." His words echoed in my ears as I stepped into the chilly night. A whirlwind of confusion and revelation coursing through me. I knew I had to speak to Jacob immediately, to face together the truth Nathan had so unsettlingly exposed. The question now, as I hurried home, my heart heavy with both dread and hope, was whether our marriage would survive this new honesty, or if it had finally reached its breaking point. When I arrived home that night, my heart was racing, a heavy knot tightening in my chest. The conversation with Nathan had shaken me to my core, leaving me uncertain and raw. The house was unusually quiet, shadows lingering softly in the corners. Jacob was already home, sitting silently in the dim living room, his posture rigid, waiting for me. The tension in the air was tangible, as if he somehow already knew where I'd been and who I'd spoken with. I took a hesitant step forward, bracing myself, aware that we stood at a crossroads. "Olivia," he began softly, his voice tense and controlled. "Is there something you'd like to tell me?" His eyes, darkened by hurt and suspicion, locked onto mine, piercing straight through my carefully maintained composure. A rush of shame washed over me, not because I'd done anything explicitly wrong, but because I knew I'd kept something vital from him. "Jacob," I started cautiously, my voice quivering slightly. "Nathan reached out to me today." Jacob stiffened visibly, his jaw tightening, and I saw the hurt deepen across his features. "And you agreed to meet him?" he questioned sharply, disbelief coloring his words. "I did," I admitted quietly, my chest aching. I needed answers, Jacob. I needed to understand why he'd inserted himself into our lives, why he'd chosen us. He stood abruptly, pacing the room, frustration radiating from him in waves. "And what did he tell you, Olivia? What brilliant insights did he offer about our marriage?" "Jacob, please," I pleaded, stepping closer, desperate to reach him. "He said things that hurt to hear. But maybe, just maybe, we needed to hear them. He thinks we've become complacent, that we're living side by side without truly seeing each other anymore." It hurt to hear, Jacob, but was he entirely wrong? He stopped pacing and turned sharply, facing me fully, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and anguish. "So you agree with him? You think we're broken, Olivia?" "No, that's not what I mean." My voice broke as tears filled my eyes. "I love you, Jacob, but we can't ignore this any longer. Something has shifted between us. Nathan didn't create this distance, he only pointed it out." Jacob's shoulders sagged, the fight draining from him. He slowly sank onto the couch, running his hand through his hair as a heavy silence settled between us. Maybe you're right, he finally admitted, his voice hoarse. I've felt it too, the silence. The emptiness, but I didn't want to admit it. I thought if we ignored it, it would somehow disappear. But hearing you say it now, it terrifies me. I don't know what comes next. I approached him, carefully sitting beside him, placing my hand gently on his knee. Jacob, I don't either. But maybe that's okay. Maybe recognizing there's an issue is our first step toward finding each other again. He looked at me, his eyes vulnerable, reflecting a depth of pain and hope that made my heart ache. Do you think we can still fix this? He whispered, sounding afraid of the answer. We have to try, I said softly, squeezing his hand. We owe it to ourselves to confront this honestly. Not because of Nathan, but because of us. We sat there, enveloped in silence, holding onto each other as if the mere act could prevent us from falling apart completely. It was unclear what lay ahead, whether we'd rediscover the connection we once cherished or find ourselves drifting irreparably apart. But as the night settled around us, heavy yet comforting, I felt the faintest stirrings of hope. Perhaps facing this painful truth would be the catalyst we needed, either to rebuild what we had lost or to courageously admit that our paths had finally diverged. Whatever the outcome, we had reached a point of no return, standing together in the fragile silence, daring to believe that honesty might somehow save us. In the days that followed our confrontation, an uneasy peace settled between Jacob and me, fragile as glass, easily shattered by the slightest misstep. Every conversation felt loaded, each glance held a question neither of us dared to voice aloud. Yet, despite this tension, we both moved cautiously closer, navigating the minefield our marriage had become. Jacob had begun coming home earlier, perhaps out of guilt or a desperate attempt to reconnect. I cooked his favorite dinners, clinging to routine, hoping normalcy would soothe the wounds we both silently carried. But beneath our careful smiles, the shadow of Nathan's revelations still lingered, whispering truths we had avoided for far too long. Then, on a quiet Saturday evening, the delicate balance we'd been maintaining fractured once more. I was clearing away dinner when my phone vibrated against the kitchen counter. A cold chill immediately creeping up my spine. Jacob paused mid-sentence, his gaze shifting sharply toward the screen. I recognized the number instantly. Nathan. My heartbeat accelerated, my breath hitching in my chest. Jacob's eyes hardened, his jaw tightening. Is that him? He asked quietly, voice deceptively calm. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the phone, unsure whether to ignore the call or answer, fearing either choice might deepen the chasm already between us. Yes, I admitted softly, feeling vulnerable under his piercing gaze. But I didn't ask him to contact me. Answer it, Jacob urged suddenly, his voice tight with barely restrained emotion. Put it on speaker. I want to hear what he has to say. Reluctantly, I complied, my hands trembling as I answered, placing the phone between us. Nathan's familiar, smooth voice filled the room, immediately charged with a tension that made the air itself feel thick. Olivia, Nathan began softly, unaware Jacob was listening. I know you asked for space, but there's something you need to know. Jacob hasn't been completely honest with you. I saw Jacob's body tense, his face pale, his expression shifting from anger to something more akin to panic. My heart clenched painfully as I glanced between the phone and Jacob, trying to decipher what Nathan could possibly mean. Nathan continued, his voice steady but heavy with regret. There's more to this than you realize. Jacob and I had a deal, something he hasn't told you. It wasn't just me, Olivia, Jacob had agreed. Initially, I can't let you go on believing he's completely innocent. My stomach twisted violently, the room spinning as Nathan's words sunk in. A cold dread spread through my veins. What are you talking about? I demanded weakly, my voice shaking as I turned accusing eyes toward my husband. Jacob? Jacob stood frozen, his eyes wide with shock, a deep shame overtaking his features. Olivia, I was going to tell you. When? I interrupted sharply, betrayal slicing through my heart. When were you going to tell me you were part of this? Jacob moved forward desperately, reaching out to touch my arm, but I stepped back instinctively. Olivia, please, he pleaded, Voice strained, eyes glistening. Nathan twisted things. I agreed at first because I thought it would help us. Help us? I echoed incredulously, tears burning at the corners of my eyes. By what? Testing our marriage? He lowered his head, silent, guilt written clearly across his face. Nathan's voice returned, softer but cutting through the silence. I'm sorry, Olivia. You deserved to know the truth. I never wanted to hurt you. The call ended abruptly, plunging the room into deafening silence. Jacob stood helplessly, watching me crumble under the weight of this fresh betrayal. The trust I'd fought so hard to preserve felt shattered beyond repair. Olivia, Jacob whispered finally, desperate for forgiveness. Please, let me explain. I shook my head, stepping further away, feeling suffocated by the revelation. I don't know if I can believe anything you say anymore. Jacob. As I turned away, tears blurred my vision, the distance between us suddenly infinite. I didn't know how we would move forward, or if we even could. The illusion of security we'd tried so desperately to rebuild lay broken at our feet, leaving us stranded in the harsh reality of truths we'd never wanted to face. In the aftermath of Nathan's devastating revelation, the home Jacob and I once shared became an unbearable space, thick with silence and simmering hurt. Each passing moment felt endless, as though we were trapped in a cruel limbo, unable to go back, yet too wounded to move forward. I spent the days avoiding Jacob's pleading gaze, seeking refuge in empty rooms, or pacing our quiet garden, searching for clarity. But no matter how far I wandered, the echoes of his betrayal haunted me relentlessly. One chilly evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of melancholy blue, I found myself sitting alone on our porch swing, wrapped in a woolen blanket. Jacob emerged hesitantly, his footsteps uncertain. He sat cautiously beside me, careful to leave space between us, respecting the fragile barrier of my anger and grief. His presence, though comforting, brought a surge of fresh pain, a painful reminder of the trust we'd lost. Olivia, he finally spoke, breaking the heavy silence, his voice low and thick with emotion. I can't bear this anymore. We have to talk. I inhaled sharply, turning slightly to look at him, my heart aching at the sight of his tired, sorrowful eyes. What's left to say, Jacob? You made a choice without me. You let another man come between us. And now, I don't know who you are. I made a mistake, he whispered, his words trembling with remorse, eyes glistening in the fading light. But everything I did, even agreeing with Nathan at first, was because I felt like I was losing you. We'd drifted so far apart. I was desperate, Olivia. I didn't know how else to find my way back to you. I studied his face, seeing the sincerity etched deep into his tired features. The conflict inside me intensified. Anger fought fiercely against the lingering love I still held for him. But you chose the worst way possible. I choked out, my voice thick with tears I was trying desperately to hold back. Trust was the only thing holding us together. Jacob, without that, what do we have? He reached out slowly, his fingertips grazing my hand gently, an offering of reconciliation that I was too raw to accept fully. We have years, Olivia, memories, laughter, struggles, moments no one can take away. I made a terrible choice, but it doesn't erase everything good we've ever had. His words tugged fiercely at my heart, awakening memories of happier times. But the wound of betrayal was deep, throbbing with pain each time I considered forgiveness. A single tear slipped down my cheek, and I turned away, overwhelmed by confusion and grief. Suddenly, Jacob stood up, taking a deep, shaky breath. His eyes brimmed with determination as he faced me. I know I've hurt you. I'll regret it every day of my life. But I can't lose you without fighting. I won't stop trying, Olivia, not until you tell me there's no hope. His passionate declaration sent a shiver down my spine, reigniting a spark of longing deep within me. Yet, the fear of opening myself up again, only to face more heartbreak, felt nearly unbearable. I don't know if hope is enough anymore. I whispered softly, my voice quivering, but I'm tired of feeling this pain. I'm tired of being afraid of what else I'll discover. Jacob knelt slowly in front of me, his eyes pleading, then let me prove it to you, one day at a time. No secrets, no lies, just us trying to find our way back. The sincerity in his voice was almost irresistible. And despite myself, a faint glimmer of possibility flickered within me. Could we heal the damage done? Or was the trust truly broken beyond repair? I didn't know the answer yet. But as I looked into Jacob's earnest, hopeful gaze, I realized one thing with absolute certainty: the journey ahead would be the hardest we'd ever faced. And only time would reveal if love alone could mend what betrayal had torn apart. Days turned into weeks, each passing with a fragile carefulness as Jacob and I navigated the slow, uncertain path back toward each other. Every interaction felt tentative, each conversation a delicate dance around lingering pain and cautious hope. The wounds Nathan had inflicted with his revelation were slow to heal. And though I saw Jacob's genuine efforts to rebuild trust, the shadow of doubt still haunted every step we took. One afternoon, as rain fell gently against the window, creating a rhythm of melancholy, I discovered a small, sealed envelope lying discreetly on the kitchen table. My name was written across it in Jacob's familiar handwriting. My pulse quickened with a mix of curiosity and anxiety as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note, brief but poignant. Olivia, I know I can't erase what I've done, but please meet me tonight at the cafe where we first met. Give me one chance to remind you why we started this journey together. If you decide not to come, I'll understand, but I'll wait for you anyway. My heart fluttered, torn between the pain of recent betrayal and the gentle warmth stirred by the memory of our beginning. The cafe was special to us, a humble, cozy place where we had spent countless afternoons sharing dreams and whispering secrets. I hesitated, uncertain whether revisiting those memories would heal or deepen the ache within me. As evening approached, an inner voice urged me forward, compelling me to face whatever awaited at the cafe. I stepped out into the fading twilight, rain softly pattering on the sidewalk, mirroring my conflicted emotions. Walking toward the familiar place felt surreal, each step echoing the uncertainty within my heart. When I finally arrived, I saw Jacob immediately, seated at the table near the window, the exact spot where our love story began. My breath caught as our eyes met, his expression a complex tapestry of hope and vulnerability. A gentle smile touched his lips as he rose, extending his hand slightly in hesitant invitation. "Thank you for coming," he whispered, voice shaking slightly with restrained emotion. "I wasn't sure you'd show." I sat across from him, my fingers trembling slightly as I gathered my thoughts. "I almost didn't," I admitted softly, feeling exposed, but something inside kept telling me to come. He nodded slowly, drawing a shaky breath. "I brought you here because I wanted to remind us both of who we were before everything happened. Before I lost sight of us." His voice grew thick with emotion. "I made mistakes, Olivia, mistakes I can't take back, but I want us to remember what we once felt. Because I still feel it. I still believe we're worth fighting for." I stared at him, seeing clearly the earnestness in his gaze. The sincerity in his voice tugged fiercely at the walls I'd built around my heart. "Jacob," I whispered softly, tears gathering at the edges of my vision. "I'm afraid to trust again. I'm afraid that if I open myself up, the pain will return, and I don't know if I can survive it twice." His eyes shimmered with understanding and deep empathy. "Then let me carry the burden this time. Let me show you every day that I'm here. That I'll never let this happen again. All I'm asking for is the chance to prove I can be the man you fell in love with." Silence fell between us, heavy with anticipation and hope. In that moment, I felt something shift deep within me, a tentative willingness to believe again. My heart raced with uncertainty and yet, also, with newfound courage. "Maybe," I finally said, reaching out hesitantly to touch his hand, the warmth of his skin reigniting memories of love and connection. "Maybe we can start again. Slowly, carefully, no promises yet, but I'm willing to try." Jacob's face broke into a relieved smile, his eyes reflecting gratitude and hope. As we sat together in the quiet of our shared past, I realized the path forward wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in weeks, I felt genuine hope that perhaps our love, though tested, was strong enough to heal the wounds of betrayal. If only we moved forward together, step by cautious step. In life, we all face moments when trust is challenged, when our deepest bonds seem fragile and uncertain. Olivia and Jacob's journey reminds us that while love can be tested by betrayal and doubt, Healing begins when we dare to face our fears and choose openness over bitterness. It's a powerful reminder that forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing to move forward. Step by careful step, toward a stronger, more honest connection. Have you ever found yourself in a similar crossroad, struggling between protecting your heart and opening it again to someone you love? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. If you found this tale moving, please like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Reddit for more powerful stories that explore the complexities of love, trust, and forgiveness. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on the next chapters of Olivia and Jacob's heartfelt journey. Your support means the world, and together we'll discover how their story unfolds.